any company today, when they become famous, let's put it that way, they go public, they IPO, and what seems like people in the public thinks it's overnight success. It's really is not. It's normally the idea starts years ago, right? Sometimes you think about. I don't know if you ever watched the movie Inception.
Yes, I love that movie.
Okay, so idea is really hard to get rid of once it enters your brain,
Yeah.
and the human mind becomes kind of engulfed in that idea. If the idea is so strong enough, because it's formulated from your core, it's your true belief and your essential existence, if you will, right?
Yes.
You will formulate thoughts, you will formulate ideas and plans and goals. And this is not just for work, but like in our daily life. Maybe you have an idea to get in shape and run a marathon. Right now you're dormant, you're a couch potato. Whatever stage you're in, all your idea is to maybe learn a musical instrument. Your
Yeah.
idea is to, all your idea is to turn some idea into a charity work or something. I'd say, hey, I have this idea to, help the least privileged people. And, the idea might be very tiny. It could be just something you fleetingly got while you were doing something. But it's very important to cultivate these ideas, because without these, we are no better than, I would say, animals or whatever, right? They
Hmm.
just react. They're
Right.
more in existence of something. Why is that important? So most companies, today, who are in, let's say, a tech space, any company that go public or make a success, it's really about an idea. An idea.
Yeah.
I'm helping the local Silicon Valley startup community, and we talk a lot about idea to IPO. The idea is like, you think about idea to IPO, it's a long route. So some
Hmm.
founders, this week there was news about the Palo Alto co-founder, the CTO, finally decide
Palo
to,
Alto
step down.
Networks. Palo Alto
Yes.
Networks. Yeah. Okay.
He decided to step down as CTO, and spent whatever 20 years or something, a great amount of time, innovate the company around network security when there was a lot of uh, issues about high cyber hacking, etc., etc. How do you defend against
Hmm.
this, in a new innovative way? Well, if you think about it, before that there was already companies like Cisco and Checkpoint firewalls and all these guys already in the market, very well entrenched, very public. Yet you have a newcomer and introduces an idea, right? Why don't we do this way? We do that. This is how we should approach security. The point is that from that idea, how do you get to a full-fledged product, and not only get to a product, but get to a product where there's, of course, adoption and growth, right?
Hmm.
So when I think about startup engineering, it's not just like you get an idea. Yeah, everybody has idea. What you do with it? Think about it, jot it down, piece of paper, napkin, whatever it is. Don't lose it. So that's what happened in the very
Hmm.
beginning with IT conductors. Like, we had an idea. The idea was floating around, like two ideas from two different people. That's interesting, right? So I myself and my co-founder,
Yeah.
David Stavitsky, who is the CTO, on a by chance encounter, we ignited over this idea. By chance encounter, I mean that I've been in the consulting business for years, working in the SAP space, providing consulting solutions, architectural, whatever you. I was doing quite well, quite happy. David, on the other hand, come from
Yeah.
more of an engineering background. In fact, he's into art, so he thinks a solution should have some artistic touch to it, right? Like, it has to be
Artistic touch.
not only
Okay.
solving the problem, but solving the problem, but solve it in an elegant way, in a structure. There's a touch of art to it, right? And so
Yeah.
we encounter via one of the consulting engagement. I needed somebody to do something, an architect of sort, and I was at the time basically reselling one of the vendor solution, BMC, if anybody knows the name, right? Back
Yeah.
then, BMC software based out of Texas had a solution which, funny enough, I, as a reseller, the first reseller in the US for this SAP monitoring solution
Yeah.
from a Israeli company called Opti Systems back then.
These
And
systems.
they were an Israeli company. They wanted to sell products into the US to monitor SAP performance and all the availability stuff. They didn't have anybody on the ground here. And so I had actually been approached by OptiSystems because I was at the time already doing a lot of work in the performance space. They came to me and say, we have this product. Would you like to be our kind of solution provider in the US? And I looked at it and I said, hey, this is a good idea. This idea is good. And they actually took the effort to patent their product, right? Which is another thing
Really?
I'll talk about, how important it is to protect your IP.
Yes.
So back then I said, sure, let me look at it. I always want to kick the tires. And I looked at it and I said, yeah, okay, great. Sure, let's go and take it for a test drive. So I actually installed it, play with it, and said, okay, you know what? Let's sign an agreement. I will be happy to be kind of a reseller solution provider in the US. So that's how I started into this, first of all, software space in dealing with SAP performance management, monitoring, all that
Yeah.
with this company there in Israel, right? Anyway, later on, this is where my CTO came in. Later on, the company OptiSystem was directly, when I was reselling it, was competing with the BMC software product. So BMC had a product called Patrol, right? BMC Patrol. And at the time, and this was, I would say, in the 2000 something timeframe era,
Mhm.
but they had this product and they were monitoring a lot of things like network and Windows servers and the things like that. But every time I went to an SAP customer who had a pain point around monitoring and performance issue, I would install it the same day. Install, can you believe at the time was unique? I went in there with approach. I'm gonna go in, install it, and demo right off the live data from their systems the same day. Literally, I went in there maybe let's say 9 a.m. and by noon we're doing a demo on their system with their data. At the time, that was like unheard
Yeah.
of for a lot of the enterprise software. So I was able to sell a lot of these deals, and a lot of the time, the competitor on the deal was BMC. So BMC had heard about this. We kept beating them in these deals. The customer saw a superior solution. Of course, I knew kind of the performance inside and out, and I said to them, "Hey, well, I think we can make a lot of these deals." And we did sell a whole bunch of these millions of dollars of deals around the US. And then BMC said, hey, you know what? We can't beat them. We're just going to buy them. This is how enterprise world works in software, right? If you don't have the innovation, you're behind, you're losing deals, you're bigger, you got more deeper pocket, you buy them. So they actually bought up the systems out of
Mhm.
the market. So they took it and they integrate that into they call BMC Patrol, but it didn't look anything like Patrol. Patrol, we kept beating it down. It was not a superior technology when it comes to monitoring for things like SAP. So at the time, my co-founder, CTO, David, he was actually originally Russian. So it's a little bit of background on David.
Yeah.
So he's born in Russia, but he immigrated to Israel, and so you have a Russian Israel scientist, and he was working on some of the BMC product over there for BMC. In fact, he was working on we call it now workload automation, which is really job scheduling, if you will,
Yeah.
which is kind of a business IT conductors in also like we orchestrate and then run activities, right? But back then, he was the original one of the key developers for Control M,
Control M.
which
Okay.
is the job scheduling package for enterprise jobs. So workload automation, if you will, back then.
Mhm.
But anyhow, they had him working on the adapter for Control M to actually
Yeah.
schedule SAP jobs.
Mhm.
So SAP customers, and the reason it's important is SAP, just like any enterprise software, right? You got 1,000 things you need to run. You need to have some kind of schedule to run things, schedule things, right? It's
Mhm.
basically a job scheduler.
Mhm.
But a lot of enterprise that BNC want to get in, they have SAP and they didn't have the adapter, the job adapter, the intelligent thing that can talk to SAP. So David actually worked on that Control M module for SAP. And this is how my story is coming about because I was already reselling one of the solution, then BMC bought them up the systems. And then from that point on, I encountered David on one of the sales deal when he started doing the SAP Control M module. And so by chance, we said, hey, are you working on that? And we got on a sales call on one of these BMC because I was a partner and he was actually doing work for BMC.
Yeah.
Anyway, a little bit later on, I said, look, I liked the product when it was OptiSystems. When a BMC came along, I became automatically grandfathered in to resell the solution and implement it. We did a few implementation. I sold to
Nice.
companies like Symantec and all these guys. Very
Yeah.
large. You may remember like Nortel Networks and all these guys
I remember them.
and Symantec. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, but after some time, I said with David, I said, hey, I actually like the original product. Now it got into a bigger corporation. Sometimes you start a product and it grows up and it's not
Mhm.
something you envision anymore. Sometimes like that, right?
Yeah.
So I started kind of thinking about, hey, I actually know a lot more about this stuff than some of these companies do. Why don't we do something? I always had this idea in my head. Let's start a solution, a platform. And that time,
Yes.
David was looking for a new gig because he's like, I'm not sure I want to do this. And at the time, he had already immigrated from Israel to BMC in the US. And he was in like Houston when we met. Soon after that opportunity came where I said, hey, look, you know a lot about software development and product management. I have a lot of user case consulting and I have been reselling solutions. He said, hey, I have this idea for a platform. At the time he pitched to me, right? Because
Mhm.
I actually hired David on one of our consulting engagement for Sun Microsystems. And this is one a story back then when I told originally how AT&T was the prime provider for American Idols when they call in, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. So the story was that American Idols was very popular, but the phones were ringing off the hook. The servers were just not able to keep up. Whatever number of millions of calls came in on whatever weeknight they ran it on. Anyway, David and I got called in by Sun Microsystems, who provide a lot of the kind of servers behind the scene that run the infrastructure. And we
Yeah.
had been doing a lot of work for SAP. I myself and Sun do a lot of large enterprise projects. And so they called me and said, "Hey, we need some help because they've got systems going down. They got unreliable services. They need us to help them stabilize." So I came in and I proposed a solution for it that require a couple architects and things. So I
Mhm.
myself went on the project up in Seattle, and then I brought in David. And David was looking to move on. I said, "Hey, David, why don't you come and work with me on this project, and we can see how we can solve their problems." And you know what? We came in there
Yeah.
and we wrote them a whole entire playbook on how to manage these systems, how to have visualizations and
Mhm.
a dependency, making sure that if a server went down somewhere, you know exactly where it is. If somebody couldn't, I mean, AT&T couldn't figure out what that server was doing. Was it handling like 100 calls? From what state was it doing? Because they had to segment it. So we had built them a model how to relate all of these computer components, if you will. If you think about a map of applications and what actually runs these applications, that's kind of what we
Yeah.
mapped out. And they said, hey, we need a system that will track all this, will track performance, will know when something is wrong, who it impacts, who needs to get fixed. Because the problem is if you don't know and something goes down, you can't even dispatch engineers to fix them. You have no idea. You're like, there's 2,000
Mhm.
servers. Where do I go? Do I go to this rack or do I go to that rack? I walk down this data center, this aisle or that aisle. Back then, man, physically, we would go to data center when something goes down and figure out how to fix something or what is the impact. And they couldn't figure it out. So anyway, from that point on, when I talk about an idea, is David had an idea. He didn't know what to do with it. It was in his idea, and he always thought about it, and like thought about. But by chance encounter with me,
Mhm.
who actually are in the real world with real problems and real customers, he pitched to me and he said, "Hey, I think with this engagement, we know we need this stuff." I listened and I said, "That sounds like a really cool thing. So let's
Mhm.
Let's do this, right? We have no idea. We
Yeah.
know that we have an idea, we have a need, but like we need to feed our family, we have mouths to feed and all that stuff. What do we do with this thing, right? Do I throw away my consulting engagement company? At the time, I think I had 20, 30, 40 people working in various projects around the US. Um, so for us, that idea eventually took over, meaning like it kind of grew and grew. And all he showed me was a prototype of what he had. And I said, hey, what? At the time, it wasn't focused on anything. It wasn't focused on SAP or anything. It was like a general idea about automation. Okay. And from what I saw, I said, look, you have the engineering mind to create a platform. I have all the use cases. I have more use cases than you can think about, right? So then I started
Right.
saying, hey, look, for this type of customer with these pain points, this is how we can provide a use case. Because the platform can be great. It will have 1,000 features, but unless you can create a use case that solves very specific problem, it just sits there with thousands of features that nobody uses.
Yes.
So in the beginning, we said, all right, instead of building a product, and funny enough,
Mhm.
at the time, cloud was not nowhere to be found.
Cloud
So
was nowhere to be
we say,
found.
okay,
Wow.
let's create some cloud. There's no cloud, right? You think about it. Was probably 2005,
Yeah, I was
2007,
gonna
whatever
say, it
era
had to be
that is.
somewhere around
You
that
like
time.
pre.
Yeah.
So what we did was we took the idea and say, okay, let's create a solution and think about how we would, I would say, deploy or deliver it, right? Because you think about it again,
Mhm.
back then there's no like Amazon delivery anything. So the point is that you have a solution. Customers at point A need it, right? They could be anywhere in the world. How do you deploy this? And literally, we came up with a way where we created the software, but instead of what we saw as typical failure point for companies like BMC who ship CDs and have to have people with expertise go there, install it, and then train the people. And you know what? A year later, it became shelfware because there's so much maintenance on top of that. People who need to go there,
Mhm.
maintain it every day, caring, feeding, all of that. It's great when they first roll out and they maybe lose their executive sponsor. A year later, people are not keeping up. It's falling behind in patches. And soon it became software. So I saw literally deals were like $500,000 deal in
Wow.
software that was deployed, working. And then a year or two later, it became shelfware, right?
Yeah.
So what we said is that we need to change this model. We need to change it in a way where customer don't have to worry about any of this, meaning that we will have software, we will configure it, it will work out of the box, and we'll adapt whatever customized for that customer, and then it's maintained for them so that all they gotta be is the user.
Yeah.
So this is like pre-SaaS day, right? Pre-SaaS now, everybody knows SaaS. It's like, oh yeah,
Yes.
SaaS, and I just subscribe and use. Well, that was what was back then. We said, hey, let's create this model. Kind of almost everything is a service. We'll bring the expertise, and we literally had customers who wanted our stuff, and we physically pre-install on a server, a rack server, ship it to the customer. We went there on site. I remember David and I went to, I don't know, was Chicago or something, one of the customer, and we they walked us in from security, and we went and said, oh, there's the server you shipped us. Okay, all right. So we unboxed it and say, well, show me where your rack and your network is. And we plug it in, power it on, plug it into network, and voila, we had
Voila.
service. Now, they didn't have to do any of that work, right? We all of that. They didn't do any install, anything like that. All we did was pre-install, configure, send it to them, plug it in, and literally now they have service and software in a box, and a couple guys who
Really?
actually own it. So there was no like 3 layers of people to go through to get things done. No phone call for support, nothing. And we
Mhm.
did projects like this for a little while, and I'd say little while in the beginning before we incorporated IT Conductor. We had several projects, maybe a handful, a dozen projects. Everybody from IBM to very large, customers. Pratt& Whitney was one of them. Uh, if you know Pratt& Whitney, they make engines and
Yeah.
aerospace defense. I think they call United Technology, UT, UTX or UTC or whatever.
Mhm.
And so in the beginning, we literally had this idea. The idea would not die, so we built it. And then
Yeah.
the idea became live. In whatever shape or form, you have to engineer it to survive 10, 20, 30 years, not just for that instant to solve one problem only, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it could be servers everywhere. We improve the service, we deliver on typical. I remember one Accenture project we were on. It must have been around 2011, maybe 12 or something like that. Accenture had a go live migration. They couldn't finish on time. We came in and did the work of about 6 months in about 6 weeks. I did a
Wow.
whole performance testing, monitoring, tuning, everything, and they did nothing. They just provide us, here's what I need to test, and we did the whole thing from our services standpoint. Now we took that model. Now it's basically encapsulated in IT Conductor. You think about it, you subscribe, you onboard, very little work there, and the rest lives in the intelligent cloud that we manage.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the service delivered remotely 24/7, every minute of the day. Customers can access it from anywhere. Our engineers can live anywhere. So it's a remote by nature platform. So why it's important to bring this story out is that that single idea probably took from the time that we talked about it, or the time it was in David's head, to the time when we incorporate the company in 2014, at least 7 years, 6, 7 years. All right. Uh,
Yeah.
and now since incorporation, we've been in business for 11 years. Um, there is no overnight success. There is the idea. There is
Mm-hmm.
the engineering mind to solve real problems, and then
Yeah.
to make it a repeatable process to go out to customer, real customer, not in some lab, go out and test it and refine it and say, hey,
Mm-hmm.
this current version sucks, doesn't work. Let's rebuild it. So back then, I had the kind of not the idea, but really the discipline to say, how do we know this is unique the way we deliver this? How do we make sure that it is um, managed correctly for engineering for 10, 20 years? So we started our IP portfolio for patents. So
Yes.
in I think I would say 2017, 2018. We started formulating the patents for what we already built. It was
Mm-hmm.
kind of the secret sauce. In 2019, we actually filed in the U.S. Patent Office. In 2023, we were granted the first U.S. patent for IT Conductor as a platform.
Mm-hmm.
So today, if you go to the U.S. Patent
Right.
Office and you search for IT Conductor, you'll find a cloud-based application performance management patent there. And it details out a lot of the early work that we did in how we approach and solve this problem. Massive data, enterprise talking to all kinds of applications, have the ability to orchestrate, automate, run a lot of things, monitor. And this is unique because we have patented it. And so we
Right.
got another reissue of the patent. We revised with some adaptation. And this past year, 2025, we were granted a second iteration of this patent to basically grow the use case because it's always growing. We have concepts and
Yeah.
ideas that we protected the platform. So the platform now is a living organism, but its core principles about automation, orchestration, the agentless technology that we have and how we provide everything as a service is core to this patent.
It's
We
core to the
then
patent.
took
Okay.
that and said, look, yeah, so we took that patent and we also filed in the, I think we filed in 2022, European version of this patent.
Uh-huh.
This past August 13th, just a few
Yeah.
days ago, we were granted the European patent for IT Conductor. So in the European
Really?
Patent
Okay.
Office,
That's
IT Conductor
fantastic.
as a cloud-based application performance is the equivalent. So we have protection in the EU for all the countries that are part of the EU, recognize the Paris Treaty for intellectual property.
Mm-hmm.
All came because of one idea that we keep feeding and growing. So at the end of the day, one of my thing about building kind of a company based on engineering is you don't need a lot of sales marketing fluff. Okay. You need
Mm-hmm.
pure engineering. You need
Mm-hmm.
the ability to relate that engineering to solve real problem, and you have to be
Yes.
persistent at it. You cannot like hit the first roadblock and say, it doesn't work. No, sometimes you have to do it 20 times. And I remember creating the first use case for, monitoring SAP. And it's a hard thing. It's almost like you're taking something that has 1,000 metrics and very noisy with lots of alerts, thousands of alerts. Imagine if you're looking at an instrument panel with like 1,000 different metrics and things flashing. How do you make sense of all that, right? So a
Mhm.
lot of these are very difficult things to do. And it took us, from an agile standpoint, many iterations to refine to something that we could scale. So today, our
Mhm.
customers can sign up today to get, let's say they're running SAP S4HANA or something. It literally take them like 15 minutes to have a system completely discovered in IT Conductor and all the templates that go and what to monitor and how to monitor it. Literally, all of that engineering work came from years of experience adapting a platform engineer to a use case, keep refining it, keep asking customers like, what's important to you? Oh, how do you want to use this? And a lot of them say like, I don't want to maintain anything. I don't want to look at like noise. I want it to filter out. And a lot of these now built in. So where customers come to us and like, hey, reduce so much noise and having this capability. And
Mhm.
as an example, this is just one of like 20 or 30 or 40 adapters that we built over the years to work with
Yeah.
different applications, right? But it comes from the same platform. We didn't create separate products. It's because the platform was created correctly to wrap the framework for any application that come along for the next 20, 30 years. So that's really what is unique about IT Conductor. It's not really to create something as a one-off, but it is a framework. And once you have the framework, the platform,
Framework.
and
Got
it's
it.
scalable, you can build almost anything. So today, for example, you want to run a bunch of things that are not related at all, but just for art's sake, you want to relate them and say, hey, do this and do that and then do this, and run it on here, run it on there. It doesn't matter. You come up with the scenario, we can automate it.
Yeah. Right.
And that's a dedication to kind of a turning idea. So the customer now is actually the one that generate the idea. We provide a platform. The customer come and say, hey, I have this
Mhm.
idea to solve this problem. You guys have the
Mhm.
engine. Let me scribble down what I need done in an idea, and can you implement that? Yeah, we say, sure. We'll just take our graphical composer out and drag and drop boxes, connect them, give them some logic, tell them what to do at each of these stages, and then how to monitor, how to launch it, how to schedule it. And it becomes a solution for that customer. We've done this
So
enough
I have
time
a
now where we have the solution
yeah.
prepackaged.
Well, I have a question about that. Like if a client comes in and says that they have an idea, wouldn't it be better if they come in and say, "Look, I have a problem. Can you give us the idea for the solution?" Because sometimes clients, they don't have the right idea for the solution, right?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. The customer, I mean, I was on a call early today actually with a customer, and it's like, I've got this problem, this query I'm running on the database is, taking a lot of resources. And now I may need to have more money to size my machine up just to handle the workload or,
Yeah.
put up with like performance degradation. They know what the problem statement is. They don't know what the root cause is, right? And they are asking for advice on how to tackle the problem. And the advice come into multiple ways. My first advice is always, this is not a one-off. If you think you just solve it, like just hit the nail on the head and you're done with
Mhm.
it, you're probably going to be wrong because it's going to come back and look slightly different, but underlying the iceberg theory is the same because
Mhm.
you seem like you solve a thing on top, but not the bottom, and the bottom will eventually, trickle up and become the problem. So first, I always kind of like give the philosophical kind of best practice answer.
Yeah.
Okay, we need to approach it this way. So I give it a process. So they describe the problem, but because they don't understand all why it happened, their idea of solving that problem is completely different than our idea, right? And so then I have to
Yeah.
explain a little bit of an education process to say how we approach. And then once you understand and agree on the best practice, then it's time to create a solution to solve it, but not go in solution first.
Mhm. Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
approach is very
Totally.
important. Approach is like the first part of engineering. Anybody, like if you go to, I don't know, like you want to remodel a home, right? And you ask an architect to come and you say, hey, this is my current home. I want this, I want that. And the problem is I have too much sun on this side and I want,
Uh-huh.
you know, so you expressing all of your non-organized thoughts as problem statements and your
Yes.
wishes. And it's up to the architect to say, hey, let me take all this in, look at some best practice, what's been done before, what works well before I come back with a proposal and then a solution, right? So not everything needs to be solved like on the spot with just some pre-canned notion of a solution. So I think
Yes.
that's what IT Conductor does well, because we don't say, here's how the package solution work and you must work this way. We say, no, here's the framework of a solution. You can tweak and anything like that, adapt to your specific need, and now it's yours, right?
Hmm.
So it's like, I don't want a smart device in my home that can wake me up and then do whatever at some random times. I want it to be done in a sequence the way I like it at the time that I get up, right? So that's
Yeah.
what I mean, having ability to tweak it and do things like that. So from an engineering standpoint, it takes discipline to create something that has that flexibility. So one of the things that
Yes.
our engineering folks, our support folks are always surprised. It's always a learning. Is like within IT Conductor, there's probably 5 ways of doing the same thing because it's that flexible.
Hmm.
And there's like 5 ways to
Yeah.
do the
Yeah.
same thing. Yeah, so you have the ability to be flexible, how to solve a problem. It's not static. It's not a one size fit all. So that's kind of what I want to emphasize. Having ideas great, solving the problem is great, but make it universally usable and have a way to customize it to work for the customer in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah.
As a testimonial to that, like we had
Yeah.
a customer, we created this automation workflow. It's actually called one of our solutions today, our CHI, Change Automation Intelligence. We apply that
Right.
change automation intelligence to solving SAP transport automation. And the customer brought
Hmm.
the problem to us and they didn't want to go that route. That route is too complicated. I don't have enough people. And we took in what they have to say and we implemented the workflow automation for them. They've just almost completion of their 3-year subscription and they coming back to us now asking for up to 5 years more because they find it so useful. They don't have to do anything. It just works for them and it works endlessly any time of the day, any day of the week, any minute, and anyone can use it without much training at all. And so now they've
Yeah.
orchestrated an automation solution to self-help in their change management process. And it's really a game changer. So that's just an example. Like we didn't shove something, a square peg into a round hole down with them. We actually made it work for them the way exactly how their process internally to approve change, to raise requests, and to track change. And we did it exactly the way they wanted it, even though the solution is IT Conductor, but the implementation is actually theirs.
Yes. Gotcha. Wow. So that sounded so so creative and innovative, and that's a great story, Lynn. I really like it. I think it's sort of it's just kind of continues to improve what we've been talking about on these podcast episodes. And so yeah, any closing, any last minute closing words, Lynn?
No, I'd say in the upcoming episodes, I'm going to share a lot more stories about every single kind of feature that a lot of these live in my head, and of course our team that's working with customers all along. But there are literally hundreds of features built into the platform, and most of them have some backstory. And sometimes that's more important, right? We take it for granted once it's done. We're like, hey, okay, great. But remembering how it came about and what it does and what problem it solves is important also as part of trying to kind of put some passion into people to ignite that, hey, this is a living, working thing. Just because we implement it once doesn't mean that it's not continually evolving for customer needs. So it's important to reflect back on that. So I always like to go back and look at something that is out there already, people using it, but how can we keep innovating around improving, enhancing that? And so we'll talk about some of that life cycle, how IT Conductor approaches a lot of these as well. And I can highlight some of our solutions today, how it works. And we have many iterations of things. And sometimes now they are listed on some marketplace somewhere like SAP or Amazon or Microsoft or whatever. But it's important to know that there's real users and real use case, and it's only useful as the next customer, right?
Yes.
You can tout all you want and pat on your back, and then if it's useless for the next customer, then it's not for them. So we want to make sure that it's useful for everyone who
Yeah.
have this kind of pain point and can relate, and then apply the solution to make it useful for them. So yeah, I'd like to talk a lot more. And again, we will rotate different stories, but the backstories is important for us as well. So upcoming episodes, I might talk about something else, like maybe we have our data pipeline. One of the topics we cover in our recent webinar, how connected things are today about getting data and getting data correctly to the right place at the right time, not experiencing outages,
Yes.
delays that may cause problems in downstream. So more and more with AI, I think we talk about data and integration. That's very important. So I like to talk about some of that and some of the backstory that comes along about how important data integration is. And so maybe we'll do that episode as well.
Perfect. Perfect. I appreciate it, Lin, and we will talk in the next episode about these topics. Again, we'll get into more detail. So see you later. And
Okay.
until then, we will see
Thank
you
you.
all in the next episode.